إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم أما بعد قال الله تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. My dear respected brothers and sisters, inshallah I would like to continue the sort of series that we had, understanding that the children are now sort of attending the khutbah, especially now that it's the holidays and whatnot. And I believe it is more sort of relevant to them. And so the topic, I believe, is very relevant to the young believer especially. The journey from becoming a boy into a man, I believe is one of the most important topics that sometimes gets overlooked. Because nowadays society is now sort of tailoring what a man is. And we don't go by what Islam says about how every boy should become a man. And so the saying goes, every man is a male, but not every male is a man. Every man is a male, but not every male is a man. And there's a big difference when you actually comprehend these words. And most of us, we like to think that we are men. And we, you speak to any brother, and you question, if you ask them this question, are you a man or are you a male? Suddenly they take offense to it and they say, are you questioning my abilities, brother? And even yesterday, you could be born yesterday as a different gender and you can have an operation and technically they will call you a man in this country. This is the state of affairs. And legally the government will support you in this as well. They'll say you have the right to identify as what you want. So being a male, there isn't anything special about it. Because you were born like that. Right? And some people, like we said, can have an operation to do so as well now. But to be a rajal, to be a man, that is something different from us. And it's not something that you can claim. This is not a feeling that you can claim that you are a rajal. It's not a feeling that you can claim. To be a man, you don't just need a beard. Anyone can grow a beard. So, we like to look like men. And this is why when Allah talks of something of importance in the Quran, He addresses the what? He addresses the rajal in the Quran. And when He addresses something that's perhaps not as important, He says dhakr. And Allah makes this distinction, this distinction between the two. A rajal and a dhakr. He makes this distinction. So whenever there's something important, Allah addresses the rajal. When there's something of less importance, He addresses the dhakr. And so I want to ask you, my brothers and sisters, how will you stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Will you stand in front of Allah as a dhakr or as a rajal? So we ask, what is the criteria of a man? And like we mentioned, unfortunately today's society is pushed by media, social media, movies, and the entertainment industry is now popping. Media is shaping our society and our definitions of terms. That now that even the practicing Muslims have now taken the traits of Jahiliyyah and they try to make it deen now. So again, I ask you, what makes a man in Islam? What differentiates between the dhakr and the rajal in Islam? And today, let's be honest with ourselves today, the gun is given to the person who knows how to fight. If someone knows how to fight and physically handle himself, we give honor to this person. We think this guy's a real rajal. We think he's a man. This is what we have now taken as a criteria. Someone that can physically handle himself. The one that knows boxing or MMA or whatever it may be. And again, we care about what society thinks. And we have to understand that our moral anchor, it is not based on society. Our moral anchor is objective. It is from the Quran and the Sunnah. We do not take our society, our criteria of our morals and stuff from society and these other people, because it's always changing. Only 100 years ago, something that was socially unacceptable is now acceptable today. So it shows society is always changing their moral anchor. But with Islam, it has not changed. It is, 1400 years ago, Allah set the principle. That's it. It does not change. And so this phenomenon of us thinking that if you're physically able to handle yourself, that makes you more of a man than someone else. This isn't something new. Understand that the problems that we are facing today, this isn't something new. Whatever sickness that we are going through today, The teacher, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, came 1400 years ago to cure the sickness. And you may be thinking, we're living in a different time, a different place. What do you mean, same sickness? Even 1400 years ago, people had the same mentality, the same diseases. So now imagine, I want you to really live this hadith with me. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is now walking into the masjid, and he finds the Sahaba wrestling now. And you may be thinking, is this halal or haram? Of course the Sahaba are doing it, it's not going to be haram, is it? So he walks into the masjid now, the Sahaba are wrestling, and imagine now what is going through their heads. Imagine now you've been caught in, you have that feeling where you're kind of embarrassed. When someone walks in on you, you feel a bit embarrassed. So the Sahaba, they stop wrestling, and Rasulullah, look what he says to them. Imagine the honor of this man, the honor of Rasulullah walking in on you when you're wrestling in the masjid. And so now, Rasulullah is the teacher, he's come to cure the sickness. And so now he enters and he asks them, what are you doing? And of course he knows what they were doing, but remember he's there to cure the sickness in society. And they say, oh Rasulullah, let it go, we're wrestling. And so Rasulullah replies, because he's there to cure the sickness, he says, why were you wrestling? Why are you wrestling? And they reply to him again, they say, we are wrestling to see which one of us is the strongest, which one of us is the most physically able, to see who's the real man, the real Rajal. And you think about it today, you ask any of the brothers now, if you can put down someone else, you're more of a man. This is the sickness that we have. And the Sahaba did the same thing. They thought the same thing, that if you can put down someone else, they're more of a Rajal. And look what the teacher says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says, the strong one is not the one who can physically put down another one. This is not what determines a man. That's not how we determine who a Rajal is or isn't. So imagine now the Sahaba, the way they're feeling when Rasulullah is saying this to them. He said, we don't determine a Rajal by someone that can physically put down someone else. He says, the Rajal amongst you is the one, when a calamity happens, they can control their anger and his wrath. This is the man. And you go and tell this hadith to a UFC champion or a boxing champion, they're going to be thinking, what are you talking about, brother? So understand, it's not about whether it's halal or haram. Make your connection with Allah deeper than that. It's not about that. It's about your moral principle. It's about your criteria. What determines a man? And Rasulullah outlines it for us here. And we have this epidemic where everyone wants to even look more physically able. If everyone's going to the gym and trying to make themselves look better, and of course, it's encouraged. It's not about halal or haram, that's not the point. But everyone wants to make themselves look more intimidating to one another, just to show that I am more of a man than you are. And again, you want to have this arrogance after you gained a few muscle or a few pounds, whatever it may be. Again, this is not what determines a Rajal in Islam. And so we have to understand, again, this phenomenon of looking perhaps more physically able and you thinking that makes you more of a Rajal than someone else, again, this sickness was 1400 years ago again. It is still relevant today. Imagine now, another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he sees the companions now gathered around the tree. And so now he sees them all gathered around the tree, and he says, and he sees them, right? And all they're gathering around the tree because they need to get some dates from the tree. And so they ask Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, they say, can you go get climb the tree and get the dates from the tree? Because he was the most skinny one and athletic one. And so now that he's climbing the tree, and they all start to laugh. They're gathered around the tree and they start to laugh at him. And they're looking at him and they're laughing. And so Rasulullah comes again and he says, why are you guys laughing at Abdullah ibn Mas'ud? And they say, oh Rasulullah, they're laughing because of his legs. Look at how skinny they are. And Rasulullah replies, he says, the same legs that you are laughing at, the same legs that you are saying that they're skinny and you're laughing at, I swear by Allah, they are heavier than the amount of Uhud in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are heavier than the amount of Uhud in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So again, this phenomenon of looking more physically able than someone else and you thinking that makes you more of a man, this sickness was 1400 years ago again and is still present today. And yet, a man, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, who was so skinny, right? Rasulullah saying, in the eyes of Allah, they weigh more than the amount of Uhud. SubhanAllah. Astaghfirullah wa alaikum. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulullah. So again now, we spoke about two phenomena that are still present in today's society that we think determines a Dajjal. And we've seen the hadith where Rasulullah speaks about these two phenomena. What's another phenomenon in today's society that we think determines a Dajjal, a man? It is the money. Someone that, that can provide. Someone that has got more money than you. Apparently in our criteria today, he is the Dajjal. Right? Some people may have, you might hear some parents saying, my son is 30, he hasn't even bought a house yet. My son is 30, he hasn't even bought his own car yet. And we're putting down on our children for this, for these matters, thinking that makes them less of a man. Right? And we're obsessed with the dunya. We're obsessed with the dunya. Allah says in the Quran, وَتُحِبُّونَ الْمَالَ حُبًّا جَمًّا. Allah says you don't just like wealth, you become driven to the point where you become possessed by it. Wealth, you become possessed by it, you love it. And Allah speaks the haqq. I know you may be thinking, oh no, I don't love money, brother. But I guarantee you, you put £1 million in front of you, you're going to take it. Allah speaks the haqq. وَتُحِبُّونَ الْمَالَ حُبًّا جَمًّا. You love wealth. And so, we come to this, this is another phenomenon that we think someone that can provide and that someone that has money or more money than you, he is more of a man. And so, when we take society standards and we don't take Islam standards, what happens now? We have to answer awkward questions. And the first awkward question I ask you, my brothers and sisters, is, if by our standards, money determines what a man is, then how about your Nabi, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? Was he a man by your standards then? What an awkward question. What an awkward question. And this is what happens when you take society standards. And understand, Allah is not saying be intentionally poor. Allah is not saying that. But when you make that your criteria of a man, that is where you are going wrong. And so now, imagine Urwa, the nephew of Aisha radiallahu anha. She's speaking to her nephew Urwa. And in the authentic narration, she says, I swear by Allah, we used to see the moon, then the full moon for 60 days, where there would be no cooking or not one single flame lit in any of the houses of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Right? And so Urwa naturally asks, oh my auntie, how did you guys, what did you guys eat? What did you guys eat? She says, Al-Aswadan wal-Tamru wal-Ma. We had dates and water for 2 consecutive months. 2 consecutive months. And again, by our standards, is that someone that provides? Again, awkward questions. And everything, we're trying to be like the non-Muslim. Our criteria is not like the non-Muslims. Our food shouldn't be like the non-Muslims. Our dress should not be like the non-Muslim. Everything we are doing is being like the non-Muslim, but our criteria is outlined in Islam already. And so Rasulullah says, he says, Haniyan, glad tidings to the stranger. Glad tidings to the stranger. Because this deen was once strange at one point of time, and it will return to being strange again. So he says, Haniyan, glad tidings to the strangers. So you might be thinking, okay, maybe Rasulullah had tough times. Maybe that's why he didn't have that much money. You might be thinking you'll be going through tough times. But imagine now, I want you to really live this hadith with me. Imagine now, Rasulullah is now on his deathbed, and he's going through Sakaratul al-Maut, inside, being conscious and unconscious. And he wakes up, and he sees his wife Aisha radiallahu anha. And at the time, she's 18 years old, and she's the mother of the believers, Ummahatul Mu'mineen. And remember, when Rasulullah passed away, she could not get remarried again, because she is the mother of the believers. And imagine she's 18 now, in a society where the man was everything. The man was the provider. And so imagine now Rasulullah is going through Sakaratul al-Maut, and he wakes up now, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and he says, Aisha, how much money do you have? And she says, all we have is 7 gold coins. 7 gold coins. Between 9 wives, he had 7 gold coins. And so, again, by today's standards, is he a man? Ask yourself this question. Is he a man? She says we have 7 gold coins. And he says to Aisha radiallahu anha, he says, give all those 7 gold coins into charity. And then he becomes unconscious. Right? Imagine the thoughts going through Aisha radiallahu anha's head. She can't remarry again. She's only got 7 gold coins. Rasulullah is about to leave me. What am I going to do? So he wakes up again and he says, Aisha, what did you do with the 7 gold coins? And she says, I kept them. And he says, Aisha, do you want me to stand in front of Allah knowing that I still own something from this dunya? Do you want me to stand in front of Allah like that? Where's the sunnah in our lives? So many of us are going into haram just so we can leave something behind for our kids and thinking that makes us more of a man. Again, understand where your criteria of a man comes from. It comes from Islam, not from today's society. And again, you may be thinking, Rasulullah, this was his circumstances. He was poor because this was his circumstance at the time. Well, this is not the case. Imagine now, again, another hadith. Jibreel alayhi salam now is now sitting with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And an angel comes down. Right? An angel comes down and he asks the Prophet. He says, do you want to be a king prophet or do you want to be a slave prophet? So imagine Jibreel alayhi salam, your best buddies with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he's going to give him the best advice. And he's got the option now to become a king prophet or a slave prophet. So what happens? Jibreel alayhi salam, he says to Rasulullah, oh, Rasulullah, pick the slave prophet. Trust me, pick the slave prophet. And so Rasulullah then chooses the slave prophet. So understand, the best man to ever walk the earth, he had the option to become the king prophet. But Jibreel alayhi salam gave him advice and he chose to become the slave prophet. And so what actually determines a real man? We can go on all day about what determines a real man. What are some of the characteristics? A real man is someone who is realistic and is down to earth. He understands that, you can't, the saying in English, you can't have the pie and eat it too. Meaning that, the ulama say that the Sahaba, right, they only wanted Jannah. But we also want Jannah. We also want Jannah. But the Sahaba, they only wanted Jannah. Right? And so there are real basics that a real man needs to understand. That if you're going to be a man, that you have responsibilities, right? And that if you are realistic and that you have responsibilities. How many of us are not fulfilling our responsibilities? Ask yourself these questions. How many of us are putting away our responsibilities? And again, like we spoke about last week, sacrifices need to be made for the deen to be established like it is today. And the same way in the 21st century, sacrifices needed to be made to establish the deen. And so, ask yourself this question when you leave this khutbah today. How many of you can say that you are a real man? And you are not a man by society standards, and that you are a man by Islam standards? Because that is what is our moral anchor. That is what determines what a man is and what is not. And I'll give you some examples to get you thinking. And well, I hope this is the case, but a lot of us, we love women, right? We love women. But how many of us really and truly want to get married? How many of us really actually want to get married? Because no one wants that sacrifice, no one wants those commitments. A real man is someone that gets married and honors those commitments that come with it, the responsibilities that come with it. All of us, we love children, But how many of you actually wants to become a father? Who wants to take that responsibility of becoming a father? What makes you a man is not your ability to have children. Anyone can do that, remember, every male can do that. But it is the responsibilities that if you fulfill, that is what makes you a man. Becoming a real father and raising them correctly. Again, we all love money. But how many of us want to actually work for it? How many of us are trying to take shortcuts? Responsibilities again. What makes a real man is fulfilling those responsibilities. And again, everyone loves Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but how many of us want to actually follow His deen? How many of us love the prayer? How many of us love the Quran? How many of us love studying the deen? How many of us love going to the masajid? Allah tests you by putting you in scenarios where you have to make a decision now. Everyone loves Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but how many of us follow His sunnah? These are questions you need to be asking yourself, because if you want to become a rajal and not just a dhakr, you need to fulfill these responsibilities. And the last question I pose to you is, all of us love Jannah. We all want to go to Jannah. But who really wants to die? Who wants to die? We all want to go Jannah, but how can you get to Jannah if you don't want to die? Understand, fulfill the responsibility so that, not that you ask for death, but you are the best prepared when it comes to death, so that you can enter Jannah. And so it is important. The reason why this is the topic of today's khutbah is because Of course, we start that series where we talk about the origins of Islam, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the miracles of Islam. But it's important for the young believer to understand that we need men in today's society. We know what is happening in recent weeks with the whole far-right marches and protests and whatnot. We need real men. We don't need dhakar, we need rajal that will fulfill the responsibilities and will not let the fear spread amongst the ummah and the people. And so that you go out there with your head held high that you are Muslim, that you're fulfilling the responsibilities, that your wives and children are protected. This is what rajal is. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those that are rajal and not dhakar. Also, a few announcements before we start the prayer. I would like to mention is that when we have this rota with the guards that I've mentioned many times, and unfortunately, obviously, the last few weeks it's been the same brothers. And of course, we need to make it a rota where people continuously swap. So if you can, please do volunteer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you greatly for this when you're guarding the Jummah, when everyone else is praying. And it will not be every week. It will be 1 week this person, 1 week that person, so everyone can then pray Jummah the next week. Because the brothers have to do it now 2 weeks in a row, and of course we don't want them to miss another Jummah prayer. Also, today's fundraiser will be for the Palestinian brothers and sisters. We do that once a month, and it's the end of the month now, so today, please be claiming your donations. Please understand that, what's the cause, what's it going for, you know what is happening in Palestine, so your donations will go to them. And so I want to mention one hadith actually before we start also the prayer. And that is when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is speaking now, he's speaking to the Sahaba, right? And he's now near the Baqiyah, near the graves outside Masjid al-Nabawi, right? And he's speaking to them. And he says, I long to see my brothers. I long to see my brothers. And so the Sahaba at the time, they're going to be thinking, oh Rasulullah, you're saying you're longing to see your brothers, aren't we your brothers? They're going to be confused, right? And they asked him, oh Rasulullah, who are these so-called brothers that you are talking about? Who are these so-called brothers? And he says, these brothers, they have not seen me, yet they still believe in me. And one of them will give up everything, their family, everything, their wealth, just so that he can lay eyes on me. I long to see my brothers. And so the Sahaba, naturally, when I'm thinking, you're studying this hadith, naturally you get these thoughts in your mind that, imagine being a Sahabi at that time. We've lived with you, we've been through war with you, we've gone through X, Y, and Z with you, Rasulullah. And yet you are saying we are not your brothers. And so they say to him, how will you recognize these brothers? And look at the analogy Rasulullah gives. He says, these brothers, I will recognize them how? Like black horse. Imagine one black horse had white hooves and a white face. Will you not, and they're amongst other black horse, will you not be able to realize which one is the odd one out? And they say, yes, Rasulullah. He said, that's how I recognize my brothers. Because on the day of judgment, those white stains will be of the continuous ablution that you do. That's what will be the moon on that day. That's what will be the whiteness on that day. That's how I recognize them on that day. I long to see my brothers, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says. And this was the love Rasulullah had for us. So understand, if there's a message that you need to take away today, especially for the younger brothers, is to what determines what makes a man. What makes a man. And we need to aspire to become a rajal and not dhakar. Because Allah, the Quran, like we said at the start of the khutbah, Allah, whenever there's something important, He addresses the rajal. And when there's something not that important, He addresses the dhakar. So we made the ayah that Allah allows us to leave this place of Yawm al-Jummah, forgiven all of our sins. We made the ayah that Allah removes the oppression from our Palestinian brothers and sisters. And we made the ayah that Allah allows us to take the lessons from the khutbah and implement them in our lives, whereby we become rajal and not dhakar. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما باركت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد واقيموا الصلاه